What's your point today?
Christmas time can be really lonely, whether we're in a pandemic or not. Thankfully, most people believe we're on the other side of COVID now, but ahead of Thanksgiving, economist Bryce Ward crunched some post-pandemic numbers for the Washington Post. Quote, "Our social lives were withering dramatically before COVID-19, Ward found. Between 2014 and 2019, he added, time spent with friends went down and time spent alone went up by more than it did during the pandemic, more than it did during the pandemic." Ward was looking at the Census Bureau's American Time Use Survey. According to the data, right around 2014, weekly alone time started to increase significantly. As Ward notes, our average weekly time spent with friends had actually been stable in the years leading up to 2014. That time period is really critical when you dive deeper into the numbers. It was right around 2014 that adult social media use started to stabilize. According to Pew, the percentage of adults who say they use at least one social media site smoothed out starting in 2014, oddly enough. It's around 62%. Deloitte compared American time use in 2003 with 2017 and found we spent more time watching TV and less time working out. So we're spending more time alone, more time watching TV, less time with friends and family, and less time exercising. These numbers are complicated, sure, but that is obviously a recipe for cultural chaos, especially with big changes happening over short periods of time. So who's the culprit here? Stagnant wages, division, the sexual revolution, maybe a combination of everything? Culture versus economics is an age-old chicken or egg question. Earlier this year, Seth Stephens-Davidowitz did a good overview of what we know about that question in a New York Times essay. Quote, "A study of thousands of millionaires led by researchers at Harvard Business School did find a gain in happiness that kicks in when people's net worth rises above $8 million, he wrote, but the effect was small. A net worth of $8 million offers a boost of happiness that is roughly half as large as the happiness boost from being married." It's a little cheaper option. Arthur Brooks studies happiness full-time. Quote, "One of the greatest paradoxes in American life is that while on average existence has gotten more comfortable over time, happiness has fallen." He wrote that in The Atlantic back in 2020 and added, "According to the U.S. Census Bureau, average household income in the U.S. adjusted for inflation was higher in 2019 than has ever been recorded for every income quintile. And although income inequality has risen, this has not been mirrored by inequality in the consumption of goods and services." Meanwhile, domestic government services have increased significantly. For example, federal spending on education, training, employment, and social services increased from 2000 to 2019 by about 30% in inflation-adjusted terms. So if we shift back one more time, stay with me here, to Stephens-Davidowitz in the Times, we see what might explain this great paradox that Brooks has identified. Stephens-Davidowitz wrote, "The activities that make people happiest include sex, exercise, and gardening. People get a big happiness boost from being with a romantic partner or friends, but not from other people like colleagues," bad news, Ryan, bad news for me too, "children, or acquaintances. People are consistently happier when they are out in nature, particularly near a body of water, particularly when the scenery is beautiful." So on that note, yes, we also know Americans are having less sex now too. My old editor, Tim Carney, wrote a wonderful book on all of this a couple of years ago called Alienated America. Tim pointed partially at the rise of the gig economy over the last decade. Think Uber and Lyft and delivery services and even independent contractor jobs. Quote, "A hyper-individualized capitalism is currently taking us toward a world where workers are available when needed, but no lasting attachment is formed," wrote Carney. "Work can't form an institution of civil society because work is no longer a place or a company or colleagues. It's a series of gigs. With no lasting attachment and no long-term investment, young people are less likely to find mentorship and training. They're less likely to find the work stability that is fitting for family life." We all have agency as individuals. The right is correct about that. But it's also true that corporations are preying on our vulnerabilities in new and significant and specific ways. Consolidation of monopoly power is giving consumers less power to push back too. The government and big ed saddled generations with insane levels of student loan debt, amounts people say make them put off marriage and home ownership. By the way, we're also working more than we did in the past. This is a bleak economy, and it's a bleak culture with more alone time, less marriage, sex, and children. At least on that front, though, Brooks's paradox can become empowering if looked at from the right vantage point. The saga of the Real Workers has put on full display the corporate strategy of making normal life almost impossible for employees. The good news is we can say no to extra TV, no to toxic food, no to dating apps, no to Netflix, and no to more time alone. It's not easy at all to do that, and some of us definitely have a whole lot more free time than others. But with our spare time, whether it's a lot or just a little, we can go outside. We can date to marry. We can hang out with friends and family. There's no downplaying the importance of living wages and material stability. But while we fight the political class on that front, we can also push back in our own lives as well. It's definitely not easy, but in some very big ways, it is free. Ryan, the loneliness numbers before the pandemic.
Hey guys, ready or not, 2024 is fully upon us now, and Sagar and I have been brainstorming ways that we can really up our game for this critical election.
Yeah, we rely on our premium subs to expand our coverage, to add staff, to upgrade the studio. We just want to give you the best independent coverage of this election, which is possible. So if you can help us out, become a premium subscriber today, breakingpoints.com, or the link is down here in the description video. It really means the world to us, and if you like what we're all about, this is the best possible way to keep us 100% independent, working only for you.